without further ado, I'm just so excited that you're here. This should be great. So we've saved such an exciting presentation for the end. So Dr. G, just go ahead whenever you're ready.
All right, thank you. Sorry about that, guys. A little bit of technical difficulties trying to get in here, but yes, like Lucas said, I'm Dr. Givona Sandiford, or Dr. S, as my kids call me, or Dr. G, as Lucas calls me. And I'm going to talk to you guys today about nonverbal intelligence and autism, a subject that I'm really passionate about. So we'll get started. Okay, so yes, this is Speech Science Intermission. And many of you have already seen this trailer for our presentation, but I'm going to show it again. All right, so again, I'm Dr. Sandiford. Disclosures, I am not receiving any compensation for this intermission. I am a speech language pathologist. I have a doctorate in rehabilitation sciences from Loma Linda University. My topic of interest was nonverbal autism and treatment for nonverbal autism. I am the CEO of Melocom Speech and Language Therapy. We make apps to help treat speech and language impairments. And I'm the creator of melodic-based communication therapy for nonverbal autism. We're going to start off with an activity. Lucas, I need you for this. I don't know if you went away, but we're going to do a challenge. And I like to, there he is. I like to start with these because I think it's important to have a sense of empathy for our patients. And if you've never experienced the inability to speak, I'd like you guys to do that today. And I think Lucas is going to be our guinea pig.
Yeah,
Ready?
let's see here.
Okay, so what you guys are gonna do, and not everyone has to do this, but if you want to win a promo code for an app, it'd be great if you do it. You're going to call and order a pizza, okay? But here's the trick. You can only use vowel sounds, no consonants, okay? So what are the vowel sounds, Lucas?
A-I-O-U.
Yes, and the soft vowels too, right? So,
yes.
So are you ready for this? I feel like you can do it, right?
Yeah,
so,
I think so.
Yeah. Call pizza, and so you're going to order a pizza without any consonants. You're going to call on the phone, so this is not you ordering online. And I want you guys, if the pizza actually comes, to snap a photo and post it on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter with the hashtag AAC After Work Pizza Challenge. And 2 winners will receive a promo code to one of our apps for treating speech and language impairments. So ready, set, go.
Okay. And I have the number saved here.
Oh, you do?
Oh yeah, I was practicing this earlier.
Oh, were you?
Okay, let's see.
I do want it, yeah.
Yeah. They hung up.
They hung up. Exactly what I thought would happen. Okay, well, if anybody gets any luck and can actually get a pizza. So yeah, I mean, we're making light of this, but what is it actually like for our patients who are not able to be understood if they don't have some form of communication? And we did have a really great video with someone ordering a pizza with AAC, but we didn't add it here. You guys can look that up on YouTube. So a little more on a serious note, what does it feel like to be nonverbal in their own words? I did reach out to KEDAR. I don't know if you guys have heard of him. He's brilliant, and he's nonverbal. And this is what he says in a book that he wrote called Autism, or called Edo in Autism Land. He says, the hardest part of autism is the communication challenge. I feel depressed often by my inability to speak. I talk in my mind, but my mind doesn't talk to my mouth. It's frustrating, even though I can communicate by pointing now. Before I could, it was like a solitary confinement. It was terrible having experts talk to each other about me and to hear them be wrong in their observations and interpretations, but to not be capable of telling them. So you guys, who are the experts? If you're a speech language pathologist, we're the experts, right? So what he's saying is that he would hear them talking about him, but he could not tell them that they were wrong. So I have a clip of Ito here, and he gave us permission to use this. Can you guys hear okay? Are you still with me? Everyone can hear okay?
Yes, I think we're able to.
All right, here we go.
So Ito, do you think that other people, other nonverbal autistic kids and people can learn to type like you did? Yes. Internal. Traps.
Internal traps.
Not.
So he says it's internal traps, not cognitive, and that's what he feels. So you guys, when we think about the mind not talking to the mouth, what does that sound like to those of you who are speech pathologists? Some of you probably know the answer to this already. Go ahead and type it in if you do. Yep, I see someone said apraxia, childhood apraxia of speech. So he said it is internal traps, not cognitive delay.
Push that again, Ito? Everybody. It is internal traps, not cognitive delay.
It is internal traps, not cognitive delay. So I have another really great poem here from Sami KEDAR. He's awesome. I hope he's watching. I invited him to watch. And he's also nonverbal. And he writes beautiful poetry. And so I'm going to read some of it here. And if you guys could just kind of close your eyes and try to imagine that this is your dream. Okay, and I'm going to hide myself here so I can see. So this he wrote, it's called Number 2, and it's from his blog, Thoughts from a Room Without Doors. And he says, I dreamt that I had a different life. I was an author. I had a normal life. I could talk, and what I said was an actual reflection of my thoughts. This one is hard to write. Nowadays, in my real life, my mouth acts like a babbling lunatic. When I want to say something, it just spits out absolute nonsense. I hate speaking. I dreamt of another world last night too. It was a world of silence. A speck of dust hit the ground with a thunderous roar. All the people pantomimed purposely. They all had sad eyes. I was content. I woke up ashamed. I would never wish this curse upon anyone else. So you guys, this is someone describing what it has been like for him to be nonverbal. And there's more to this beautiful poem, but I wanted you guys to actually see him. Here he is. I know, tears, right? And I wanted you guys to see him typing in that he's writing this himself. No one is holding his hand or whispering, you know, in his ear. And if you take a look also at the room around, you can see pictures. It looks like there's a high school picture, and I really like something on the wall that says crazy about learning. He said, hi, my name is Sami KEDAR. Another thing that's really interesting is when he sent this to me. He sent it with an apology. And he said, I'm sorry, Dr. S, that I was stimming so much. I wanted it to be perfect for you in your presentation. And I told him, Sammy, it's good that you're stimming so much. It's good because we want people to see that just because somebody has all of those motions, those repetitive motions, it doesn't mean that they're not intelligent. It doesn't mean that they don't have something to say. And you'll kind of hear him humming a little bit later too. And I think he has a great voice. I don't know. I tried to ask him what song it was, but he didn't answer. Let's see, he's saying in TH. We kind of skipped ahead there. Yeah.
I want to thank Dr. S for inviting me to be in this presentation.
Okay, I want to thank Dr. S for inviting me to be in this presentation. I'm Dr. S, in case you guys are like, who's Dr. S? We'll skip ahead a little bit to the end in the interest of time. Let's see.
I have autism and this is how I communicate.
He says, I have autism and this is how I communicate. Yeah, so that's Sammy KEDAR. I'm going to read the end of his poem. It's really beautiful. So he says, we are here, we with rapidly moving limbs who trace shapes in the air, we with head bob, non-logical dances, we with non-eye contact mathematical brilliance, we with bent finger food all over embarrassment, we with bodies dangling from fine twine tacked to frontal lobes of applesauce linguine, we are here. And isn't that beautiful, you guys? I mean, so we talked about the power of being able to generate your own sentences. Because who here would put applesauce, linguine, and frontal lobes together? I would have never thought to put those words together. And it's just beautiful when you put them together. And I really hope, I was telling him, Sammy, you have to write a book. So if you guys want to check out his blog, it's Thoughts from a Room Without Doors. It's awesome. We're going to move on. So I have a game for you guys here, okay? And it's a fun game that I like to play at a lot of my conferences. If you've done a conference with me through Chow's seminars, you've probably done this game. But please bear with us and play along. It's called Predict the Prognosis. Now, this is an impossible task, but we do it every day. So now you have 3 kids who are coming to you for therapy, and I want everybody to play along, even if you're not a speech therapist. And these 3 kids, all you know about them is that they are all 3 years old and they don't speak. They're pretty much nonverbal. They might have 1 word at the most. So the first boy, we will call him Truck Boy. Okay, what's his name? Truck Boy, right? So he sees you and he smiles and then he looks back at his truck, okay? So he's playing with his truck, he sees you, he smiles, he looks up and then he looks back at his truck. So there's number 1. Number 2 is a little girl. She sees you and she screams, no! And then she goes and she hides under a table, okay? And number 3 is a little boy and he's rocking in his chair and he's rolling his neck and then he's playing with his fingers by his face. And for all you know, he might not even know you're in the room with him, okay? So these are all real patients that I saw for therapy, and if you want to see videos of them, they're on my website, www.mellowspeech.com. But anyway, what you're going to do is you're going to rank them, right? Impossible, but you're going to rank them. So I want you guys to type it in there. 1 being the one that's the most likely to do well in therapy in terms of all goals, becoming a communicator, whether that be with a device or whether that be verbal communication. And then 3 being the one who's the least likely to do well, okay? So I'll go over them again really fast. If you could just put 1, 2, 3 or 3, 2, 1. Number 1 is they have a truck, they see you, they smile, they look back at the truck, that's Truck Boy. Number 2 sees you and screams no, then hides. Number 3 rocks in his chair, rolls his neck, and plays with his fingers. Okay, so we've got people saying 1, whoa, so fast. 2, 1, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Mostly everyone is saying 1, 2, 3. So when I've done this before, most speech pathologists have ranked either the boy with the appropriate eye contact, you know, he looked at his truck and then he looked back up at the therapist as the highest, and they've said, well, he's playing with his truck appropriately, he's not banging his truck, So he's most likely going to do the best in terms of progress. And then they'll rank either the girl who says no is second or first. And then usually they do the little boy who is rocking in his seat last, okay? I mean, that's just what we do if we have to kind of glance and make a choice. So I want you guys to see this little boy, okay? So I told you these are real patients, and so his dad gave me permission to share this. This is Ethan, and he's number 3. He's our neck roller. So there he goes. You guys see he's rolling his neck around. That toy is Gooey Louie. Have you guys played that? You pull the booger and then the brain pops out. Kids love it. That's a pretty awesome toy. Okay, so I'm going to tell you guys their actual scores. So number 3, Ethan, he had a lot of repetitive behaviors, but his scores for receptive language were within the typical range. What he did have, however, was a severe form of childhood apraxia of speech. Okay, so we talked about that earlier when we said, what does it sound like when our friends Ito and Sammy were saying that they talk in their minds, but their minds can't talk to their mouth. So that sounds like childhood apraxia of speech. And he eventually did become verbal. We did standard care, which included AAC and melodic-based communication therapy for nonverbal autism. So we did a combination of those 2 approaches with all 3 children. And number 3, our little neck roller, he was the one who actually progressed the quickest. And I'll let you guys see him today. So he was 4 in that video, and here he is at age 5. Okay, so listen carefully.
Horror. Little shop of horror.
I want to watch that.
Watch what?
Like oh,
Up. Little shop of horror.
I want to watch this movie.
You do? Who are you going to watch it with? Who do you have with you?
No?
Oh. You want to watch the movie with Yoshi? Yeah. I like Yoshi's nose. It's purple. Oh, it's black. Thank you. How about his belly? His belly is pink. It is.
All right, so you guys can see him there interacting with his mom. She's kind of teasing him about different colors, and he smiles and he knows that she's joking, but he's able to now communicate. And so what was interesting about him is when we first started working with him, he had a lot of sounds that were not in the English language, such as velar clicking. Can you guys even do that? I can't. So anyway, he would use that sound for pretty much any consonant, and his vowels were very unclear. He couldn't do any vowels really with accuracy. And so he was very frustrated when we were doing the expressive language testing. I turned to a picture of a train, and you would see his mouth kind of just groping. And then when I turned the picture, you know, I was like, well, he doesn't know that one. He turned it back, and he started pointing to the picture of the train in the room. So you can see there that that's somebody who really does have the comprehension. It's just he was nonverbal. So I got this from Facebook. You guys probably saw it. It was posted on there. When you see someone who is nonverbal, what do you think that that person is thinking? And how much can you understand? So here is what I think. Here's what I can put into words. Here's what I say to other people. And here's what people actually understand. Now, I had an opportunity to experience this for myself recently. About a year ago, I had a head injury. Somebody pushed me down at a skating rink, and I hit the back of my head really hard on some ice. And I thought I was fine. You know, I blacked out, but when I came to, I felt fine, just a little pain, but I went to work the next day. And as the week progressed, my friends started to say to me, hey, your words, sometimes you're saying words that don't make sense in a sentence. Now I'm a speech pathologist, so I know what this is, right? This sounds like aphasia. And I was having, so for example, I said neurotropical when I meant to say metropolitan. So just weird words that I was making up. So I went to the ER, and they diagnosed me with post-concussive disorder or something like that. And I had to go on cognitive rest. So I thought, you know what, my patients, this is what these kids are experiencing. I was still thinking all of my normal thoughts, and I thought I could still put them into words, but people were not understanding me. But did it mean that I wasn't thinking? No, right? So Carly Fleischman, and a lot of you probably know who she is. She has a show called Speechless with Carly. She says, autism has locked me inside a body I cannot control. At 2 years old, she was diagnosed with severe autism, oral motor apraxia, which we call childhood apraxia of speech, and a severe cognitive delay. And they predicted that she would remain intellectually delayed for most of her life and that she would never make progress. And she did make very little progress as time went on. And it was at the age of 10, you guys might know her story from CNN, that she reached over to a nearby laptop and she typed in, "help, teeth hurt." And they didn't even know she was in there until that happened. And so after that, it just really spurred them on to change her treatment, to change her goals. And now as an adult, she's the author of her own book, Carly's Voice. Well, she wrote that as a teenager, and she has her own show, Speechless with Carly. And she's interviewed guests such as Channing Tatum, James Vanderbeek. You guys remember him from Dawson's Creek? Anyone who's my age? I don't know. Some of you might be too young for that. But and she's interviewed all of these famous people, and she has had nearly 4 million views, and she has nearly 200,000 subscribers. And she uses her AAC device, and she still does her various repetitive movements, but she clearly has average to above average intelligence. So a mom asked her a question and said, do you think that my daughter who's nonverbal has an inner voice like you do? And so her response was, I go to school every day with kids that are autistic, and some of them are nonverbal, but I have no doubt in my mind that they all have inner voices, and they just need to find a way to get their inner voice heard. So, and she says, if you have a feeling that your daughter has an inner voice, don't give up until she's heard. So why do I share all of this with you guys? Well, let's say that you're in therapy and you have a little girl or a little boy who's completely nonverbal and maybe doing a lot of repetitive behaviors, maybe screaming, maybe kicking, maybe it seems like he or she doesn't understand anything that you're saying. If we don't start off by assuming or presuming competence, which is what we've been talking about, then the goals that we write will be significantly lower and our expectations will be lower. Here's a parent's thoughts on nonverbal autism. And I got permission from this mom. She was featured on, I think it was Good Morning Washington. She gave us permission to use some of this video, and this is her little daughter.
She knows tone, she understands looks. So just like all of the other children in the family, when I get that look, they know, okay, let me stop doing what I'm doing. So it's not a matter of, like, I don't have to raise my voice. I don't have to really yell at any of the kids because they just know, like, when mama gives that look, they know to stop what they're doing because whatever it is wrong and they need to stop.
Tell about her testing the waters.
But she will test waters. She can be sneaky. She has her ways of, if you tell her no, she can't have the orange juice right now, she'll do this. And then you say, no, not right now. And then she'll keep going. She has her ways of testing the water to see, like, how far you're going to let her go. And you give her that look, and then she'll just go back, like, okay, let me just wait. I'm not going to do that right now. But as soon as you leave the room, she's going to touch it. If she really wants it, she's going to touch that orange juice. So in many ways, she's just like a typically developing 12-year-old in more ways than people would believe. She's just like a typically developing 12-year-old. Because it's morning time, like I said, she's so used to us anticipating her needs, so we're trying to get her to come to her device and say, hey, I want, so it speaks. French toast sticks. So it speaks for her.
So she has a nonprofit, Walk One Day in Our Shoes, if you guys want to follow her on Facebook. But you can see something really interesting that she said. Something really interesting that she said is that her whole life, her daughter's whole life, they kind of anticipated her needs, and now they're realizing that they need to find a way to have her communicate on her own. And so her mom let me know that they bought that device for her, so they're just now trying to figure out how to program it and kind of how to get her to use it. So I'm hoping that we can refer her to somebody. I think Susan and I are working to refer her to somebody in her area who can help her with that. So what else do parents think about their nonverbal children? This is a quote from David Mitchell in Naoki Higashita's Fall Down 7 Times, Get Up 8. Naoki Higashida is a nonverbal poet, Japanese poet with autism, and his books have been translated into other languages, and David Mitchell wrote the foreword. So he says, and this is his opinion, he says, ultimately, I believe that while severe nonverbal autism does indeed look like a severe cognitive impairment, the truth is it's not. It's a severe sensory processing and communicative impairment. These words hold a world of difference. To deny that a severely autistic brain may house a mind as curious and imaginative as anyone else's is to perpetuate a ruinous falsehood. So I want you guys to, I have a little boy that I'd love to tell you about, and we don't have a lot of time, but I'll just tell you the story really quickly. He came to me and he was 13 years old. And he previously was deaf and had a cochlear implant placed a few years ago. He had autism and he was completely nonverbal. And his mom said to me, you know, he can't do anything. I said, well, what are some of his strengths? She said, he doesn't do anything. I said, well, he must do something. So I like to do my assessments as observation a lot of times when I have a child that doesn't speak. And, you know, I was watching him and he got up and he got a cup and he started flipping all of the pens. And I thought, well, I wonder what he's doing there. So I observed him a little more closely and I saw that he was flipping all of the pens so that they were the same direction. And so I said, oh, he's following a pattern. So I pulled out the Jenga blocks because I love those blocks for checking pattern recognition. And I started to do, you know how they go 1, 2, 3, and then you, yes, presumed competence. I love that. And then 1, 2, 3, and then you kind of go 1, 2, 3. And so I started that pattern and then I stopped it. And then he finished it the whole way to the top. So I said to his mom, look at that. He followed a pattern. I started the pattern and he followed it. You know, it looks like he's really able to do a lot of things. And she said, well, you know what? Now that I think about it, I did lock up all of the food in the house and he figured out how to pick the lock with a credit card. And I said, oh, did you teach him how to pick the lock with a credit card? And she said, no, he figured it out on his own. So what we're seeing there is someone who's 13 years old. And unfortunately, I do not know why he had no form of communication at that time. But that's a lot of time lost that someone could have started with him at a young age, presuming that he was competent, like we're saying here. So in closing, I really would like to end with number 19 from Sammy KEDAR. It's beautiful. And what he says is, one day we will be painted in a different light. May this day come before my death. May we with scrambled frontal lobes run countries. The trees would be lined like long, lazy rivers. Maybe we will let you see them too. May we with banana fingers break barriers. The lines and roads where bicycles break will bend and blur. May we, the tragic ones, find freedom. The sky will be filled, I think, very soon. We will. And he wrote that on August 18th. Yeah, oh, that gets me every time, you guys, because look at this. So do you remember the story of Helen Keller? Helen Keller, I think a lot of you have heard it. You know, she was blind, she was deaf, and they called it mute at that time. And her family kind of just had her running around wild. And then along came Annie Sullivan. And Annie Sullivan taught her to sign using tactile, right? Tactile cues. She signed water and then put her hand under the water. And that opened up the entire world for Helen Keller. And she became very influential. And we still talk about her years after her death. And you guys, we have this opportunity to be Annie Sullivan to these kids. And, oh, somebody's saying, actually, they called, I can't see the rest of it. But we have the opportunity to be Annie Sullivan. Oh, they called her deaf and dumb. Yeah, that's right, because she didn't speak. Yes. So Annie Sullivan, that's us. We can open up the world to these kids if we are just willing to go into those therapy sessions, if we're willing to go in and believe that those children can do it, that they can learn to communicate, that they can contribute to society, that they are important, that they matter, and that we have the opportunity to just open the world for them. So that really is what I was hoping to show you guys here. I have so many stories that I could tell, but I know that we need to get some time for questions or comments or stories that you want to tell. But if you start off just believing that, you will see just your therapy sessions take off in an amazing way. Are there any questions or any comments? I see a lot of comments here. Let's see, where do I go for questions? questions and answers. Oh, thanks.
We did, yeah, I've been paying attention here. So at the very beginning, someone had asked the name of your company again, and then also what apps you make.
Okay, yes. So Mellowcon Speech and Language Therapy is the name of my company, and I called it Mellowcon because we combine melody and communication. So most of my apps are for individuals with autism who are significantly either minimally verbal or nonverbal, but we do also make apps for people who stutter and other things like that. So yeah, I have a lot of, you can check my website if you want to know more, www.mellowspeech.com, MELO speech.com. Hope that answers that question.
That's great.
Okay.
That's actually the one question I'm seeing. So you must have covered everything. That's fantastic.
Yeah. As someone says they were inspired by Annie Sullivan to become an SLP.
That's great.
Awesome.
That's fantastic. I admit that's part of not so much why I became an SLP, but why I work with the population that I do. So
yeah.
That makes perfect sense. The other thing I've seen a number of times is whether this presentation will be posted. So we will have it up on, if you look on YouTube or on Roku, if you have a smart TV or a Roku player, look for Speech Science, and we'll have it there shortly.
Can I tell just one more story? I just saw a comment. Do we have time?
Yeah, go ahead.
So somebody said the teachers find it very difficult to presume competence with students with significant needs. Any suggestions or tricks to get some buying in? So I was just talking with a school psychologist yesterday about this. They had a middle schooler who the teacher said, oh, he can't read, and there's really no reason to teach him to read. So the psychologist said that he and the speech pathologist got together and they decided to see if this little boy could read. And they held up two different words, red, brown, and just written words, and they asked him to point. And he was able to do it with ease very quickly. So what they realized is that he was able to read. So they got him an iPad and they showed the teacher that he could actually type out words and start spelling things. And that's kind of how they got her to buy into it, because they had to show her. And it's sad that experts wouldn't start off believing that, but I guess that's our battle to face.
That's great. I love the poetry. Well, yeah. Dr. S, thanks so much for this presentation. This officially ends this section. We have to end a little bit early so the next presenter can get ready. But I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. And so somebody's asking, how do we see the next presenter? If you're registered, you should have gotten an email. It's going to be a unique link for yourself. So, and then again, if anyone wants to watch it, everyone's saying awesome job. I think this was very informative and touching, both. So, thank you again, and stick around for our final session. I can't believe it.
I'll be watching that.
Yeah, me too, of course.
All right.
Okay.
Bye.